Welcome to the High Achieving Leader Podcast. This is an advisory platform for executives, founders, and high performers operating at the edge of responsibility, visibility, and consequence. This podcast is for those who require clarity, not reassurance, rigor, not performance, and presence, not persona. Let's get started. Today's episode, we're talking about the 10 laws of frame, life-changing read. The Frame by Justin Michael and Jonny Staker. And there's a lot more to it than what I'm going to share today. So we're going to be having Justin and Jonny on the show in about 3 to 4 weeks' time. Very excited. So make sure that you tune in for that. So let's dive into the 10 laws of frame. This book talks about why success amplifies authority leaks instead of correcting it. And so what really happens is that as the pressure and the stakes go up and up and up, if you have an authority leak, just like anything else, it's going to be exposed. Just like adding more water to a boat. If there's a leak, more water is going to come out of the boat and the crack's going to get bigger. Our frame, our presence, our persona, how we're showing up is going to do the same if we're not intact. So I want to be really clear that frame is not about dominance. Some of the words used in this book, I could see how somebody might misinterpret it as power and dogmatic, and it's not. It's not about dominance. Instead, it's about having an internal reference, an embodied calm, so that you can be authentic and in alignment and approach everything from that place. And in turn, you can show up powerfully, empowered in a positive way to have a positive impact on the world and those people around you. The laws described in this book really speak to how authority can be lost and not how it's performed. So this is not a performance-based book. This is not about learning this so you can go do it. It's about being different, being what this book says, and living your life that way, walking the walk, and in turn, showing up that way with others and having that radically transform your life. So law number 1, let's dive in. Non-neediness. Whew, that's a big one. So neediness often shows up as urgency. It's attachment to people, outcomes, approval seeking, people pleasing. High achievers have often disguised neediness as preparation or responsibility. We find that the more that you actually need an outcome, the weaker your frame becomes. Authority requires internal sufficiency. You don't need anything outside of yourself in each and every moment. And when you approach situations that way, you will start to see that non-attachment, that self-sufficiency, that sovereignty is contagious, and it will impact your conversations and outcomes. So the key takeaway for me on law number 1 of non-neediness was this. Presence collapses the moment that validation is required. The moment that you need some kind of external validation or approval, or you're looking for even a signal of understanding, your frame and presence will collapse. Law number 2, signal. The premise here is that signal overrides content. So what you feel transmits louder than what you say. As high achievers, we rely on intelligence to compensate for incongruent signal. Happens all the time. Polished delivery cannot override this internal tension. However, we try to act like it can. So the big takeaway here for me was that presence precedes persuasion. You have to have presence. Otherwise, there's no element of conversation and persuasion. Think about negotiations. Think about sales. Think about communication. Think about marketing. I mean, at the root cause, a lot of that is persuasion. We want to make sure it's done ethically and morally, but it's persuasion. It's convincing. It's sharing your side of the story. It's using stories. It's using data, but your presence will precede the persuasion. And that's what's going to actually close the deal, market the product, communicate the message. Law number 3, cold command. Command is calm under pressure, not force. Emotional neutrality signals authority. And high achievers often confuse urgency with leadership. Productivity, busyness. What this taught me is that calm must be embodied, not performed. When I used to try to make myself calm before a presentation or a talk, it was actually more performative. It was kind of an act. I was acting calm, but I wasn't embodying calm. Law number 4, subtext. So this one's really interesting. It says that every interaction carries an unspoken message, and we felt the gravitas of that. All of us have when someone enters a room or when we're in conversation with people. This shows up as explaining, reassuring, over clarifying, and that actually undermines you. That exposes insecurity. So high achievers leak fear through excessive transparency. We will tend to overshare, overexplain, reassure, provide more data, provide more information. Slow down. Authority speaks beneath the words. And so the big takeaway for me here was that authenticity without containment becomes oversharing. Law number 5, the frame collision. Frames will compete and it's silent. The weaker frame will often adapt to the stronger frame. We felt this when we're in rooms with people. Suddenly things shift. The tides turn. The middle of the sale, the middle of the negotiation, the middle of a conversation, things just flip. For high achievers, we must accommodate to preserve harmony. This is kind of the people-pleasing quality. And accommodation equals surrender of authority. And this isn't about winning. It's about holding presence, holding frame in high stakes conversations. So the big takeaway for me here was that competence does not win frame. Internal authority does. How much do you believe in yourself? How much do you believe in the outcome? And do you believe it's going to happen, whether it's in that moment or not? Law 6, qualification. Authority erodes when you seek to be evaluated. Again, you're looking for approval. High achievers overqualify, oftentimes through credentials and reputation. We tend to lean on IQ versus EQ. True power reverses the evaluation dynamic. Proving value actually weakens influence. It shows that you are insecure, that you're needing to edify yourself. So my key takeaway here was that I was leaking authority. I was overqualifying myself, adding too much, oversharing, and I was leaking a lot of authority and losing a lot of energy in the process. Law 7. And this is one that I wrestled with it, I'll be honest with you, because I have really strong beliefs around scarcity and prosperity. And so this is the thought that over availability signals low value. So we're not talking about scarcity in terms of resources. We're talking about time and how to value and protect your time when we talk about scarcity here. And so high achievers will often confuse access within leadership. And will think that because we're a leader, we need to be accessible all the time. Now, there's a fine line here. You should be accessible to your teams. You should be accessible to people. But if you're too accessible, your boundaries will reinforce your frame. And if you don't have boundaries, you're not going to have a strong frame. You need to have strong boundaries around your accessibility. How are you valuing your time? How are you spending your time? How are you being efficient with your time? So scarcity here is really about attention, not money, not resources. So the key takeaway for me here is that influence drains when energy is unmanaged. How are we spending our time? How are we spending our attention? And how does that impact our influence? Law 8, psychological sequence. Order determines impact. High achievers lead with logic instead of presence. Emotion often precedes cognition, and we know this through scientific studies. And so there's a missequencing that occurs, and that can create resistance. So the big takeaway for me here was that being right does not mean influential. Winning does not mean you're influential. Law 9, frame recovery. So when there is an authority leak, it's not restored through apology or explanation. Now, I'm not saying there isn't a situation where you apologize. However, overcorrection will deepen your loss. Neutrality allows for recovery. Let tension sit. This was a big one for me as a former people pleaser. Let the tension sit. So the big takeaway for me here was that if I let the tension remain, it can actually restore empowerment, ideation, innovation, collaboration, and curiosity. Law 10, embodied frame. Frame cannot be memorized. It must be lived. Your nervous system regulation is leadership infrastructure. Authority becomes effortless when its identity is coherent. The big takeaway here was that allowing others to orient themselves around you will enhance your leadership. Closing insight here, the 10 laws map how high achievers unknowingly betray themselves. The work is subtractive, not additive. The journey of self-discovery for me and others is real initiation. And this authority is not built, it's recovered. We already have it. We just have to find it. And this book helped me do that. Go pick up a copy today, The Frame by Justin Michael and Jonny Staker, and join us when we have both of them on the show here in a few weeks. Happy holidays.